you are here to learn about the zip function, right? What I want you to do in order for you to master the zip function is to follow with me and code with me. I have tried to make this really self-paced and going from the very basic to actually a data wrangling pipeline. So stay tuned for this one. But what I would suggest is if you haven't already seen the other Python developer videos that I have posted, I would really encourage you to start with those ones. Those ones will help you with the map function, the filter function, and the lambda, which is really fundamental for this one. But if you haven't, feel free to go through this one and watch those later. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so. Share my videos with your friends. And if you think I'm creating good content, I would really appreciate if you hit the like button. Let's jump into this one. The zip function is one of the most Pythonic ways of writing code, right? If you want your code to look really professional, and it's not only about the look, to operate really fast and professional, I would really encourage you to get used to with the built-in functions in Python, things like the map, the lambda, the filter, and the zip function. They will make your life way easier, and those times that you don't really know how to do something really simple, somebody has already thought about it. There is a function for it. So let's jump into the zip function. What I've got on my screen is a Jupyter Notebook running in Jupyter Lab, but you can literally run this from your VS Code, from PyCharm, or any other IDE that you may have. Before I start coding, I will tell you that because I'm running on Mac, I will use the Command B keys. So Command B will hide that sideline. And if I press it again, that comes back. If you're on Windows, you can use Control B to hide that sideline. So let me hide that one away and get going with the zip function. You might ask, what does the zip function really do, or how does it work in the backend? The zip function, which is like your jacket's zip, takes two iterables or two sides of iterables. If you don't know what iterables are, I've left a link up the top right for you to understand. But in Python, things like lists, dictionaries, tuples, range functions, strings, and such are called iterables, things that you can move one at a time over them. And if you think about one list on one side and another list on the other side, for example, phone numbers here and emails here, if you want to join them, you use a zip function, which literally acts like a zip function on your jacket. All right, then let's write that one down. So we're talking about the zip function, which I will make it a markdown. And I think note number one I want to write down is the zip function takes iterables, and you might ask how many iterables? Well, we will get there. Takes iterables and returns an aggregated iterator. I will show you what I'm talking about in short, but that's my note number one. The return will be an iterator, which is different to an iterable. We will talk about that. What I want to talk about next as my note two is that the zip function, which is the lazy function like map, filter functions, returns an iterator of tuples. I think that's also really important for you to know that the return will be tuples. Again, I will show it to you. So now let's talk about the syntax. How do we write a zip function? So I have got some iterables, which could be my lists, could be the strings, whatever. But this is how we write them. And the reason for me to leave an asterisk there or a star there is that you can have multiple number of them. You can have two lists, you can have three lists. So when we talked about the zip, we were only talking about two, but think about the possibility of combining two and a three and a four and a five and a six and so many different lists into one aggregated iterator. So to make this really easy, what I will do, I will start with a very simple example, and I will call it example one, joining two lists. That's what I will show you. What I have here is two lists of people's names and people's ages. For example, Alice is 25, Bob is 30, and Charlie is 35. What if I wanted to join those two lists together? So I wanted to get Alice is 25. Let me write it. This is what I literally want. I want to have this. I want to say Alice is 25. Maybe I want to put both of them into the same structure like that. Or maybe I want to put them into a structure like that, which we call tuples, and that's what we will be getting from zip. Some people call them tuples. I don't care. I will call them tuples, but you can call them whatever you want. I want to say also Bob is 30. So I want to do this. I can put it in a tuple just like that. And I want to say Charlie is 35. And that goes into a tuple. So how can I get from here to here? What I will do now, I will use the zip function, which I don't really need to import it. That comes with Python installation. And I will say, hey, I want you to combine names and ages. Let me run that and see if I will get this. I will run that. And it tells me, hey, you've got a zip object at this memory location, if you like. And as I said, this is the meaning of an iterator. So when I said it returns an iterator here, it means that it does not save it in a new list, if you like, because that's going to take more memory. What Python does, it saves it in one location, which is the zip object. So it doesn't have to store it in one zip object and in also a list. That would be two places. So if zip returned something like this right out of the box to me, it would be taking two spots in the memory. But what I can then do to be able to see the result, I can store it in a new list myself. So once you convert the zip object into a list object, you will see that I got exactly what I manually built. I don't really need this one anymore. I can just get rid of that and I will see the result of the zip function. But I think you get the idea that you take one iterable and another iterable and you zip them together into a new object. And if you want to store this, you can call this names, ages. If you want to make a new list, you could do that. And you could print this to see that you have got that. I guess what is important here is that the fact that this is a list, right? It comes with my interruption of adding a list here. So this is what I have done. But the fact that the zip function itself returns tuples inside is something that I'm not really managing. I am not asking the zip function to make tuples here. It comes by default. The zip function inside it creates tuples of iterables that you have provided. That is very important for you to remember. You might ask, hey, Amir, could we convert it to something different than list? Let's try. Can I change it to a set? Of course I can. Look at that. But remember that sets do not allow for duplicates. So if you have two people that are called Alice and they are 25, this set is not going to allow that. Let me show it to you. If I add another Alice who is 25 and I run that, I still have just one Alice who is 25 because sets do not allow any duplicates. Could I change this to a dictionary? Of course I could. I could convert this to a dictionary of Alice 25, Bob 30, and Charlie 35. If I run from the top, you will see that I still have only one Alice with 125 because you can have only one key, that is Alice. If you want to make this person Alice number 2, you could, and you would get Alice number 2 appear there. But the dictionary is not going to allow you to have multiple Alice, same dictation, same thing. And lastly, could I convert this to a tuple? Yeah, of course. Now it is a tuple of tuples if you look at it. All right, so we're done with example number 1. Let's go to example number 2, iterables of varying length. Oh, dictations. You might ask, what happens if we have iterables of varying length? So the length are different. So you've got 4 and 4. It's not 4 and 4. What if I've got 2 and 4? What happens when I zip them? I've got an example for it. So I've got 3 numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, and I've got only 2 letters, which is only A and B. If I go ahead and say, hey, I want you to zip the numbers and letters, and if I run that, well, it's going to be a zip object. We understand that. It's an iterator. I can convert it to a list, and you can see that I am matching 1 with A, right? 2 with B, which is here, but I'm not matching 3 with anything. What you need to remember is that the zip function stops at the shortest iterable. So this one was only 2 members. It will stop at 2 members. But if you didn't want to stop at the shortest one, you would have to import another tool from the Iterators library. That is not focus of my discussion here. That's a discussion for another video. Now, let's move to example 3, more than 2 iterables. Can the zip function zip more than 2 iterables? For example, 3 iterables? What if I have three iterables like this? List 1 is 1, 2, 3, list 2 is X, Y, and Z, and list 3 is exclamation mark, question mark, and a final point or a decimal point, whatever it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zip, and you provide them with the order that you want them. I want list 1, then I want list 2, and then I want list 3. If I run this, again, I'll get an iterator. If you want to see the result, you can convert it to a list. And within the list, you will see that I've got 1, which is here, and then X, which is here, and then exclamation mark, which is here. I've got 2, Y, question mark, 2, Y, question mark, and 3, Z dot, which is 3, Z dot. So you can definitely use more than 2 iterables. Then the question is, could I convert one of these to a tuple? I want to see if I can zip a tuple with lists. As you can see, this one was a tuple, these two were lists, and I am still able to zip them together. What if this one was a set? So if I convert this to a set, I am zipping a tuple, a set, and a list together with no problems, which is really handy. Just to reiterate, if I make the top one shorter, remember that zip stops at the shortest iterable. So if this one has got only 2, you will get 2 at the end. Now, let's move to example number 4. This one is more of a real-world case, so real-world data science problem. What happens in the real-world data science problems, you normally have some features. So as an example, you've got some values that you measure for someone. You say, if you are 87 kilograms and if you are 165 centimeters in height, you are considered, I don't want to say that, but you are considered overweight, right? If you're 87 kilograms and 165. And if you are 95 kilograms and you're 170, you are still overweight. Now, if you are only 78 kilograms and you are 180 in height, then you are normal. So these are the types of attributes or features I am measuring about some person, and then I am assigning a label. So imagine you're building a model that wants to identify who is overweight, who is normal, and who is thin, for example. So what I can do right now is to use the zip function to zip the features and the labels. I know that I will have to convert it to a list. Why not? Let's do it right now. And you will see that it says, hey, if you're 87 kilograms and 165 in height, you're overweight. If you're 95 kilograms and 170 centimeters, you're overweight and such, which is very powerful because some of the models that we use from different machine learning algorithms, they want a tuple like this, which is a match of features and labels. Then you might end up calling this data your data set for your training model. Let's move on to example 5, merging configurations. This is some of the things that sometimes happens. Let me just spell configurations properly. Make it a markdown. If you're a network engineer or a systems engineer, for example, you might have some config keys and some config values. For example, you want to know what the host is, what the port is, and if you are allowed to do debugging while in production or not. You've got the host here, you've got the port here, and if you've got that Boolean value for debug. So if I run that, then I can say, hey, I want you to give me the list of the zip of config keys and config values. You can then see that I've got a list of host is 127.0.0.1 and such, or you might just want to convert it to a dictionary. Now you've got a dictionary of the host, port, and debug value. Now let's move to a bit more fun stuff. Let's move to example number 6, which is merging the map and the zip functions. This is pretty cool, and you will see a lot of this in advanced data wrangling. So if you've got 3 lists like this, you've got your list A, B, and C, and you have been asked to add 10, 100, and then 20, 2, and 200, and 33, and 300. You've been asked to add the first indices, the second indices, and the third indices. There are multiple different ways that you can do this, and I think you would first jump to think about the for loops or list comprehensions, but I would say there are easier and more memory efficient ways to do this. What I would do first, I would say, hey, let me look at the zip of list A, list B. Hopefully I'm not making any dictation mistakes. I am. And that will give me 10, 1, and 100, which is index 1, index 1, index 1, or 0 in Python if you like. You can see that I've got 10, 1, and 100, which is index 0, index 0, and index 0. I've got 20, 2, and 200, index 1, index 1, and index 1, and such and such. Now, what I can do, I can save this as the mother list. I'll call it mother list. And the mother list equals what I just showed you. Let me print it down here. What I then need to do is to add them together. If you haven't seen my video on the map and the lambda function, the links will be successively coming in on the top right. But a quick reminder from the lambda function, let me call it add lambda way. That's the name of the function I'm creating. I will use lambda that takes each item, and items here, this is one item, this is another item, and this is the third item. Takes each item one at a time, and in that item takes index 0. For example, in this item, index 0 equals number 10. Takes item 0, and then takes item 1, which here will be number 1, and then adds it to item index 2. I really encourage you to go and watch my lambda function video. This will make way more sense. So I will save this function into this name if I run that. All I need to do now is to use the map function, which itself takes a function and takes an iterable, right? I know what the iterable is. I called the iterable the mother list. Again, go watch my map function video. This will make way more sense if you watch that one. Let me copy the name of the iterable, which comes here. It's called mother list. And the function, I've already created it. It's ready. It's called add lambda way. If I paste it here, and if I run this, map function itself is a lazy function. So if I run this, I will not see anything. It's an iterator. If I want to view this, I'll have to convert it to a list or to a set or a dictionary, whatever. I will run this, and now you can see that using the combination of the map function, the lambda function, and previously the zip function, I've been able to add 10 to 1 and 100, which is 111, 22 and 200, which is 222, and 33 and 300, which is 333. All right, the next example, which will be example 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, and example 7 is merging the zip function with the filter function. Let's make this a markdown. Hopefully I'm not making any mistakes. Imagine I've been given a list of student scores, which is here, 4 students, and their students' names. I've got Alice, Bob, Charlie, and Diana. I've been tasked to find students who have scored more than 75. So this is the task. Find students who have scored more than 75, and maybe just show them. Just fix that one. All right, that's my task. Now, for me to be able to zip this, I need to make a new variable. I can call it student underscore score zip, which will be the list of the zip of the, maybe I'll use the students first because I want the names to be first, and I will use their scores. Once I do that, I can print the student score zip, and you will see that Alice has scored 80, Bob has scored 92, Charlie 70, and Diana 65. So ideally, I should only be showing Alice and Bob. What I can do now, I can use the filter function. If you haven't seen my video on the filter function, the link is up the top right. But the construct of the filter function is that you need to provide a condition or a function for a condition. I'll just write down condition. And then you need to provide an iterable. I think the iterable bit is very easy because we've already created the iterable. Here is the iterable, student score zip. That's what I will be working on. But now for the condition, I need to create that condition. So I will use the lambda function, and I will say maybe filter scores using the lambda. That's the name of my function. I'm not sure it's the best name, but it's a name. I will use the lambda function to take each item, and each item is this, or this, or this. So each of those students and their score is one item. So take each of these tuples and make sure inside that item, index number 1, because index 0 is the name and index 1 is their score. So I am working on the score. My condition is on the score. make sure item number 1 is greater than 75, and that's my condition. And I have given it a name, so copy that and paste it here. And if I run that, you will see that I have received a filter object. Filter function is also a lazy function. For me to be able to see that, I'll have to convert it to a list. If I convert it to a list, you will see that I've got Alice, who has scored 80, and Bob, who has scored 92. Very cool. One last example I want to show you is example number 8, combining zip function with lambda to use in sorted function. I'm pretty sure I made many mistakes in typing, but that's okay. You understand that. Imagine I've got 2 lists. One is for the product. I've got keyboard, monitor, and mouse. And I've got prices. One is $29.99, one is $199.99, and one is $9.99. I've been asked to sort the products and their prices in a descending order. So first, I want to show the most expensive, the middle one, and the cheapest one at the end. Well, I'm pretty sure that you know that now I have to combine products, prices, zip. I'm not sure it's the best name, but I'm just giving it a name. I'll make a list of the zip function of products, and prices. That should allow me to print the result to show you. That's going to be my iterable. Yep, I've got keyboard, monitor, and mouse. I've zipped them together. Now, I want to use the sorted function to sort them from the most expensive to the cheapest one. What we normally do with the sorted function, we put the iterable first, and then we use a key. The key defines how we sort it. So the iterable here is called product prices zip. So I will copy and paste it here. And now for the key, I'll be using the lambda function. So I will say, hey, lambda function, go through each item here. So let's call each of them an item because I like to call things items. And make sure you take this index number 1 because this is index 0 and this is index 1. In Python, we start counting from 0. And make sure you do the sorting on index 1 of these items. So this is first item and this is index number 1 in the first item. This is the second item, and this is index number 1 in the second item, and such and such. So if I show the result of this, I might be able to show you that I have now sorted this from the cheapest to the most expensive. But I was asking for the opposite. I was asking from the most expensive to the cheapest. Well, there is a way for that. So what I need to do now is to add a new argument here and say reverse is true. What it does, it takes the most expensive, which is the monitor, then the keyboard, and then the mouse. All right, that's a wrap for the zip function. So we use the zip function when we have to combine or aggregate multiple iterables. So if you're working with lists, tuples, sets, dictionaries, strings, or the range function, you can use the zip function to join them together. Number 2 is that the zip function is a lazy function. It creates a lazy iterator, which you can't really see. It looks like zip cross 0, 1, 2. You can't really see it unless you convert it to a list or you convert it to a dictionary or a set or such and such. Number 3, make sure you understand that the zip function stops at the shortest iterable. So if you've got one list that is 100 values in it and another list that is only 50, the zip function only works until number 50 and just gets rid of the rest of it. Number 4, the zip function normally gets used with the map function, filter, lambda, and such and such. It's a really powerful function in creating data wrangling pipelines, and normally it's the first one that gets used. And lastly, there are other ways to join 2 iterables, but I really encourage you to learn how to use the zip function and also continue using it because it makes your code really memory efficient. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends, and stay tuned for more videos coming your way.